And welcome to JJ Wins in Holiday City, the return of Sports Weekly, a couple of weeks off after having tournament basketball. That's one of our focuses tonight. We want to let you know Sports Weekly, powered by Terry Hendricks Ford and brought to you every week here at JJ Wins for at least 5 more shows after this, as our final season here doing the Wednesday show will wrap up in mid-April. Also brought to you by Fackler Monument Company, Bryan Parks and Rec Department, and the main stops of Northwest Ohio. It is a full Bryan connection tonight with guests, and a house tonight that is filled with Bryan guests. Wait a minute. If you're going to make noise, you got to make more than that. There we go. I mean, we got to get the crowd fully amplified here tonight. Our last guest tonight will be Bryan grad Deylen Miley, who is climbing that ladder through the Houston Astros organization. We talked to him earlier this week via phone line. Todd Grosjean will be our second guest, head coach of the regional finalist Bryan Lady Bears. By the way, his introduction includes now, if I don't know if he's officially filed yet, but if Carrie Schlade is nervous about the next mayor, Todd has it locked up right now. If he wanted to run, you'd win it right now, Coach G. And our first guest is Bryan Wrestling head coach Matt Dominique. Matt, welcome in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here with us. This is season 5 at Bryan as head varsity coach. Is that right?
That's correct.
But a lot of years involved in wrestling.
Yeah, I've been involved for a few years.
Okay, yeah. I go closer to a lot than a few.
Yeah, closer to a lot.
All right. So, for those that don't know your background, tell us a little bit, our listeners, a little bit about yourself.
I'm a Bryan graduate, graduated in '93, came back here to Bryan, 6 years ago, I think it was.
Okay.
And took over the wrestling program 5 years ago and have been steadily working at building things up.
How would you describe when you took over the job, the state of the program? Where was it at? And I got to believe it's night and day from then to now.
I would say that we had, maybe 10 kids on the team. No way that we were filling all the weight classes. There's 14 weight classes at the high school level. We probably were forfeiting 6 weight classes every time we'd go out in a dual meet. Now we are at the point where this year we had 27 kids on the team, filling all of our weight classes most of the time. Sometimes with injuries, we were obviously didn't fill everything, but for the most part, we were filling all of our weight classes, and the numbers from the youth program on up continue to look good. So I'm hoping that next year that we may hit the 30 mark with the number of kids on the team.
What does it take to get from where you were numbers-wise to where you are now? A lot of in-house recruiting, I have to believe.
A lot of in-house recruiting. I think part of what has helped our program is when I came back to Bryan, I went back into the classroom as a teacher, and I've been able to recruit kids in my class that I've had. I've been able to walk through the halls and grab kids out of the hall that weren't playing basketball and say, hey, look, you need to come out for wrestling.
Or maybe doing nothing at all.
Or, not doing anything at all and just grabbing them and saying, hey, come out for wrestling, try it out. I've had a few that, my 106-pounder Alex Lane never wrestled a day in his life until 7th grade, and he was walking through the hallway, and I just grabbed him and I said, hey, dude, you'd be a great wrestler. Tiny little guy, not very big. He definitely wasn't gonna play basketball or anything, but Alex came out and has worked his tail off and has really turned himself into a pretty decent wrestler for us.
Matt, describe it's one thing, you hear stories all the time about one sport or another, about a kid that hadn't played and they're getting a late start and they get asked by the coach and they come out. What does it mean to get a late start in wrestling?
It's pretty tough. The sport of wrestling, a lot of kids will start at the age of 5, 6, 7 years old. A lot of those kids, it's like basketball. You get your kids out there, they start very early. But with basketball and other sports, not just basketball, but other sports, you have team members that can sometimes cover up maybe some weak spots that you might have. With wrestling, you step on the mat, it's mano a mano. And if you have a weak spot, they're going to take advantage of it. And if they have a whole lot more skill than what you have, it's not always the strongest guy. Strength is important, yes, but you have to have the technique that goes along with the strength. And if you don't have that, that makes it pretty tough.
It sure does. How has the sport, in your opinion, evolved, gotten better, changed as the years have gone on?
I tell my kids a lot of times, there's all kinds of funky stuff that guys do these days with wrestling. A lot of rolling around and getting weird positions and stuff like that. I don't remember being in those kind of positions when I wrestled. I think not that fundamentals have gone by the wayside in any way whatsoever, but it's just it's a different kind of sport. Things have changed in that way where it's a whole lot more scrambling, whole lot more of those kind of positions than what I think it used to be.
Okay. One area that I know it's changed, and I want to come right out of the gate and ask you about this. Troy Roth sat here in your shoes and in that chair last year and said right before the tournament, he said, just wait, girls wrestling is about ready to take off. And we know Troy Roth. This guy isn't Confucius. I mean, he's not going to be described as somebody that can foresee the future that well.
Right.
But he was dead on with that. Talk about girls wrestling overall and at Bryan right now. It literally is the largest growing sport in the state of Ohio.
Yes, girls wrestling is taking off faster than ever. Last year, about this time, is when maybe a few weeks from now, it was just after the boys state tournament, they announced that girls wrestling was going to become an official OHSAA sanctioned sport. And it has taken off super quick. At Bryan, we started the season this year with 10 girls on our team. Due to injuries and things like that, we are down to about 5 girls that have stuck it out to this point. We have 2 girls that will not compete at the regional tournament this Sunday, but we have 3 of them that will compete at the regional tournament on Sunday in Marysville. And I think there's 70 girls teams that are
statewide.
70 girls teams that are competing at our regional.
Oh, just at your regional.
Just at our regional event. So they're talking, there's the possibility of some of those girls brackets being as big as 32 to 64 person women brackets. So
who are the girls from Bryan that'll be competing?
For us, we have Trinity Ream, who is a sophomore. We have Taylor Falk, who is a freshman. And we have Marley Yoder, who is a junior this year. So,
what was the biggest barrier in getting girls, or that hurdle to get girls to come out for wrestling?
Gosh, I think, I'm really not sure, Andy. It's one of those things. I can tell you as a coach, it has been a big change for me because it's different coaching girls than coaching guys.
In wrestling?
In wrestling, specifically. There is no doubt about it. I don't envy Coach Grosjean in any way, shape, or form. I love my girls, don't get me wrong, but it's a completely different beast. You have to deal with a whole lot of other things that you don't deal with guys. So it's just one of those things that you deal with.
But it is, and it's exciting the way to see this take off for girls wrestling. It really is.
I'm super excited about it. I mean, big sport when the University of Iowa, who is premier wrestling in the country when it comes to, when you think of colleges, usually you think Iowa is one of the colleges you think of right off the top of your head. And they have started a girls varsity program at the University of Iowa. And my belief is that it won't be long and Penn State will have a girls program. Ohio State's going to have a girls program. All of these, Oklahoma State will have a girls program. Those are the premier schools that in the college level, and they're going to be building girls programs. So
it's coming.
It is. It will not be very long. I mean, you look at even the Olympic level. There are girls from the United States that we have Olympic medalists already from the United States in female wrestling. So I mean, it's coming.
Girls, guys, how would you describe? Doesn't matter overall for Bryan Wrestling. How would you describe this season so far? Before we get to who's alive still in the tournament.
I think things have been going really well. All season long, I preach to my kids. Look, I'm not worried. I don't worry about wins and losses so much. I am very big on the season. The regular season is the time of the year that you make your mistakes. You learn from what you have done wrong and those kind of things. A loss is only a loss if you don't learn something from it. And so my kids know that they can step out on the mat. If they give me everything they've got, I'm happy with them. And so ultimately when it boils down, this is the time of the year when I want them to perform. The tournament run is the important thing. Just like with the girls, you can lose games during the season, not a big deal. You get to the tournament time, that's when you got to win. That's when you got to put all the dice on the table. You go. So that's the way it is with wrestling. You get to this time of the year, and you can't take every single match means something. My kids have worked hard all year long. We've had some ups, we've had some downs, but I'm super happy with the way that we have performed.
How was it this year? Just recently, a couple weeks ago, had the NWOAL. What was the league like this year?
The
league,
as always. As always, the NWOAL is tough as all get out. Archibald they won the state dual meet championship. Wasion was third in the state dual meet championship. Liberty Center was a qualifier in the state finals of the dual meet tournament. So I mean, you start talking about the NWAL. It's in and out. It's always tough competition. I don't feel we wrestled our best. I was honestly a little disappointed with the way that we competed, but the previous year we did the same thing and turned around at the sectional tournament and wrestled really well, and that's kind of what we did this year.
And one other change too in wrestling I want to make sure we get along, and it's, I know, a handful of years ago, a little bit more of a move to invites over the weekend and away from your duels and tries, right? I mean, I know they still happen, but a little heavier.
We don't get as many home events as what, say, the other sports do. We have a lot of tournaments. Now, the nice thing is that our administration has been awesome with things. And, this year, for the first time, we had a dual meet at home, and we started it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon during the school day. We invited all the kids to come to the dual meet. We wrestled with Fairview, and it was awesome. An awesome atmosphere, something that I hope that we can continue to do. I'm going to try to find one for next year again to be able to do that, and maybe even find a couple that will allow us to do a home and then an away. So
that's great. I heard that, and I was like, that is really cool. I mean, and it took some coordination to make all of that happen. And you introduced some kids to the sport.
And it's not just, we were all for it. That just doesn't mean that every other school is going to be for it and send their kids over to Bryan to be able to wrestle during the school day. It just so happened that Fairview and their administration were okay with it, and they came over and we wrestled, and it was great. Loved it.
We talked about the girls getting rolling this weekend. Who's alive for your boys going into this district weekend?
So boys wise, I have my 138-pounder Jordan Cook, who's a sophomore. He took second at the sectional tournament and is a district qualifier. I have Jaden Dennis, who is my 175-pounder. He took fourth at the sectional tournament and is a district qualifier. And then Zane Bell took third at the sectional tournament and is a district qualifier. Now, in wrestling, they also qualify. They have alternates. So, like with wrestling, you have sometimes guys don't make weight. You know, it's a long season. We start back in November, and sometimes by the time March rolls around, end of February rolls around, guys are tired of making weight. And so I have two alternates, Damian Wolf, who is my 190-pounder, is an alternate. He's a sophomore. And then Malachi Collins is my 165-pounder, and he is a senior this year.
And you'll be going where to wrestle?
We go to Norwalk. So we're going to be right down the road we're going to be right down the road. I know you guys play, they play Norwalk, but, if you all want to come out and watch a little wrestling before you go to Mansfield, wrestling at Norwalk starts at 4 o'clock. So, you can get a little wrestling in before you go to Norwalk and pound on the truckers over there at Mansfield.
Yeah.
So,
anything else that you want to make mention of here that I didn't ask you about, or anything you wanted to touch base on with Bryan Wrestling?
Just, I always tell kids, try it. It's no different than basketball or football or track or any other sport. I always have kids tell me, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. Well, unless you try it, you have no idea. And I can tell you that my coaching staff, I have one here, Dell Miller. Dell on my coaching staff has been, Dell was a coach. I probably shouldn't say this, but Dell was one of my coaches when I was in high school. And Dell knows the sport inside and out, has done a phenomenal job. He's kind of the guy that keeps me under control sometimes. I get a little animated when I'm in the corner coaching in matches. And so sometimes Dell has to put a hand on my shoulder and say, hey, relax a little bit. Just relax, coach. It'll be all okay. So, but, I come out, try it. It's never too late to start.
Yep.
The other thing, I don't know if you want this, but I'm going to throw a pitch. There are some really awesome things going on in Bryan right now. We have a capital funds thing that's going on with our new track, with the turf, and all of those kind of things. There's a lot of things that are coming after that. This is Bryan's place to be right now. We're building a lot of good things. The wrestling program's coming. The girls' basketball program is phenomenal and has been for the last 4 years now. The boys' program is starting to come back around. They're working. Football program. We're girls' sports all together. Softball program. Bryan's coming, and so super excited about where everything is headed. Not just wrestling. We're coming, but it's the whole school district is heading in the right direction.
One quick question: what were your numbers like junior high and biddy wrestling? Are you feel okay there, or do you need more?
Yeah, junior high wise, I had 10 kids just here 2 weeks ago, and I think some of the basketball coaches probably were a little frustrated. We had a youth tournament there at Bryan here just 2 weeks ago. Would have been the 19th, I think it was. We had over 300 kids, 330 kids wrestling in the tournament, not all from Bryan, but we had 40 kids from Bryan in the youth tournament. So super excited about our numbers at the youth level. Things are coming. It's just takes time.
It sure does. Any sport like that when you're trying to.
Rome wasn't built in one day, that's for sure.
You're doing a fantastic job, Matt.
Thank you.
Wonderful
I appreciate
job.
that.
Thanks for being with us. Matt Dominique, head wrestling coach at Bryan, our guest here tonight. In segment 1, Sports Weekly rolls on with Bryan girls coach Todd Grosjean when we come back.
The Bryan Parks and Recreation Department would like to wish the Bryan Golden Bears good luck in tonight's game. The Bryan Parks and Rec offers a wide variety of classes for you during the entire year and an array of sporting events all year long. Check out what the Bryan Parks and Recreations Department has going on at bryanparksandrec.com or like them on Facebook. The Bryan Parks and Rec hopes to see you in one of the many parks that Bryan has to offer and enjoy the facilities. Questions about the classes or rental of one of their facilities, call 633-6030.
When it comes to choosing a memorial that represents the lasting memories of a person's life, the Fackler Monument Company in Mount Pillier, Ohio can create exactly what you are looking for, like an eagle soaring through the woods etched on a memorial, a bench that has mom and dad's names engraved into the granite to sit and reflect, a picture of the family farm etched on the stone, or maybe your style is a memorial that has a split headstone with a vase in between for flowers. The Fackler Monument Company of Mount Pillier, Ohio, serving families in the tri-state area since 1924.
I want to talk to you for the next 30 seconds about the place to go for your next vehicle. Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archbold. Whether it's a new vehicle for purchase, a lease vehicle, or perhaps a pre-owned vehicle, Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archbold is the place to turn. They also have this fantastic service department as well. Service after the sale. Terry Hendricks Ford, serving all of your vehicle needs in Northwest Ohio. Go to terryhendricksford.com.
Welcome back to JJ Wins. If you are here a part of the audience, welcome in. If you're listening on air or online, thanks for being with us. Next week, we are going to flip the script a little bit to baseball. Hilltop head baseball coach Tony Gehrig will join us. Edgerton's head baseball coach Mike Gillen will be on, and we have another invite or two waiting to hear back from there. Right now, we're going to focus on girls basketball. And a history-making season for the Bryan Lady Bears. It had been to a regional once in '84, and to use your words, you kicked that door open. Is that almost verbatim? And now we're playing for regional championship. Todd Grosjean, our guest tonight. Thanks, Coach. Exciting time to be in Bryan right now, and head coach of the girls basketball team.
Yeah, yes, it is, and I keep wondering if I'm going to wake up, and it's a dream, but, credit to these kids that we're coaching right now in Bryan and the families involved and the staff we have. It's pretty special.
You were here, it was before the holidays, right? So we're just getting, I guess I want to talk a little bit about that season, because, it was another amazing regular season to put yourself in this position. You win another NWAL title. That's 4 in a row, joining only 2 other schools in, oh, by the way, the oldest league in the state of Ohio, and there's only been 3 teams that have done that, so that's 4 in a row there. And you do it with a great group of kids, but it wasn't always the same way winning every single night either, and some things happening along the way. Talk about that regular season journey before we dive into the postseason.
Well, when we got started, our numbers were down, which was kind of concerning, but, the kids we had coming back, we knew we had a pretty special group. We challenged them last summer. I think we talked about that at the last show. We went to Bowling Green and we played Central Catholic, Anthony Wayne, and Fremont Ross, and those are 3 pretty powerful programs. And I think we got out of there 2-1, which that opened our eyes as to, and I hope it opened our kids' eyes. I think it did, that we could be pretty good. And from there, I think we went to a shootout at Anthony Wayne, and we played Toledo Start. We played Olmsted Falls, and I can't think of the third team, but pretty strong competition. And the kids really were tested, and we held our own. And from that point on, I think our kids really bought into the fact that we had a pretty special group coming together, and there was a lot to be accomplished, I guess.
Where do you think this group has grown the most throughout the course of the year?
Probably
either on or off the floor.
Well, probably off the floor. We had a team meeting at the end of a practice early in November, or I should say late November, and we talked about, we got to put aside the selfishness, we got to put aside, our own desires, and we got to welcome in some new faces. We got some young kids that need to be brought on board, and obviously with only 17 kids, we had 2 freshmen that never played before. We had to take them under our wing, and we had to pull together, because every day we're going to have to simulate things that we're going to see. We got to have a JV team to go against in practice, and if we didn't come together, we weren't going to accomplish anything.
And you need buy-in. I mean, especially from that upper class group, your leaders need to buy into that message. You can say that message as often as you want, but if they're not buying in, it's a moot point, and they did.
And, credit to one of our assistants, Nikki Meyer, who stepped up and spoke and talked about her experience, and that carried a lot of weight.
Yeah, and that sure did. So you wrap up the regular season, and you play that first game against Elida, and this is where I want, you can be really good, right? But you need some things to happen along the way. I mean, maybe another Bryan team that you've coached or another team that you've coached, maybe you lose that game and we're not even here right now, but you found a way in that first day, that first game against Elida. And I know it's a tough game. You're playing a Saturday afternoon. You blew them out the first time. That's only human nature to have that in your head. Talk about that sectional final win.
Well, obviously, when we went to Bluffton, we had been off, not to make an excuse, but we had been off over a week. We try to simulate things in practice and keep them game speed. And, we went in there pretty confident, I think. And when the ball went up and we were a little nervous, and it just kind of tightened up, and their student body did a great job of getting in our kids' heads, and you could see that in warm-ups, and we somehow found a way. And I've talked to a lot of coaches that said, the first one's always the toughest. If you can get that first one and you get the jitters out, and we thought we had a pretty veteran group, but even our upperclassmen were a little bit nervous at that point. And I knew going in, you beat somebody, and we had a running clock against them, and it wasn't going to be that way. And we tried to stress that all week, preparing for them, and they gave us all we wanted, and we were fortunate enough to get out of there with a win.
Always enjoyable to cut a net. You get that first one, and now you moved on to St. Mary's in the district semis in Paulding. Talk a little bit about that.
Familiar foe. We've played each other, I think, the last 2 years in the tournament. 2 years ago, we knocked them out. That was the COVID year, and we got to host. We beat them and got to move on to the districts that year. And then last year we faced them at Patrick Henry, and we didn't play particularly well offensively, and they were able to get out of there and move on to districts. So obviously we've kind of become rivals, so to speak. I know that the softball teams played them. Our soccer teams played them, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. And a lot of the kids are familiar with one another, and Coach Burke down at St. Mary's does a great job with his program and his kids, and we knew we had our hands full. The regular season game was closer than the score. I think it ended up 13, but with a couple minutes left, it was, single digits. So kids played really well. We made some free throws, and we're able to get to the section or district final.
I was going to say, what stood out that day? What did you do well in that semifinal win?
Well, and it goes back to all season. We had balance. We've been really balanced all year. We've had kids step up. Blaze Langendorfer has been our sixth man all year, and she has really grasped the role and filled the role that we've asked her to fill. She was our sixth man last year. She played through some injury last year and came on at the end of the season, and this year she filled that role, and you could see when we went over to Evergreen, and she had 20 and 8, I think, that night, and really gained a lot of confidence, and from that point on, she's been one of our best offensive players. And we've had other kids step up. Ella Rao last night was able to step up, and she gave us 9 points and I think 9 rebounds, and on a night when Kaylee Thiel struggled a little bit, got in a little bit of foul trouble, and Reese Grotehouse, who we look to do a lot of things for us. She's been the focal point of everybody's defensive attention, and we had to have somebody step up, and Ella and Blaze did that last night. And then we've got Miss Consistency, who out front, Mara Smith, who, she's not going to statistically wow you, but every night she's in the grill of the girl bringing the basketball from the opponent. And, unless you're a coach and you see her on film all the time, and, she just guards. And we got to have that if we want to play the defense that we have tried to play all season and in the past 3 or 4 years.
So Saturday night, you get Lima Bath in the district final. All right, honest question. Either way, it was going to be a rematch. Did you rather had Bath over Liberty Benton?
I don't think our kids cared.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got beat by both of them. We just wanted to, have another shot at one. And obviously to get St. Mary's, we walked in the locker room afterwards and we said, you got your wish. And then when obviously Benton went down, I think our kids were fired up. Obviously we were giving up a huge amount of size to Lima Bath with 6-footers, 3 6-footers in their lineup. And, we had to find
physical too, right?
Yeah, and we had to find an edge. And, we from the I guess the mental standpoint, we're not going to back down from anybody, and we got to take them out of what they want to do. And we obviously had a quickness advantage, and I thought our kids really did a nice job defensively and gained some confidence. And obviously Blaze stepped up again, and we had Reese Grotehouse, got whacked across the nose and pulled a Willis Reed and went to the locker room and came back out, to a huge crowd ovation. And you could see our kids were pretty focused on getting out of there with the district championship.
By the way, you used the Bum Phillips line too. By the way, kicking that door down. That's a old Oilers coach. I just had to get
Nobody
that in
here knows that.
Well,
You're
do.
the only Oilers fan
I know.
here.
So Zach.
Well,
yeah.
Ian, I don't know if he's listening.
So you kick that door down, and as I move on from that, what was that like? You get to cut district net, and you get to move on and become the second team in school history at Bryan to do that. What was that moment like for you, the kids, for everybody, program-wise, parents, families?
Obviously pretty special because 2 years prior, we went there, led Napoleon for 3.5 quarters, and then it kind of got away from us, and Napoleon goes on and wins the state championship that year, and we were that close. Obviously, we lost Reese Grotehouse at, game 10 of that season, and had she not gone down, who knows what happens. Chloe Antigo got hurt in that 4th quarter, and, if you had a crystal ball and you could see what could have happened, that was a pretty special year, and I know our kids were pretty focused. Our alumni was disappointed. I bring up our alumni all the time because we aren't where we're at if we don't have kids that lead every year and
lay that foundation.
Absolutely. So
you get, and I read a quote from you afterwards that you were actually pretty happy that you had that quick turnaround to a Tuesday, because that was a pretty fast turnaround to play in a regional semi from Saturday to Tuesday. And the thought of that was why?
I don't know.
Just not to have time to think about it?
No, yeah, and obviously Reese, in their post-game interview, talking to Brian Arnold and Chris Malanga, brought up, the unfamiliarity might be a positive, and you don't get a lot of time to look at film. You're just going to go back out there and play, kind of like a regular season game where you go Tuesday or Thursday, Saturday, and obviously when you got a guy like John Miner who watches more film than anybody in the state of Ohio.
Well, he's got time.
Well, yeah.
We weren't even sure he actually had a job. So. Part-time, John. So I think the truth be told, if you ask the average Joe Q citizen what was going to happen last night, I think they would probably say it's the end of the road. I mean, let's face it, St. Mary's does a much better job than you do at recruiting. Okay?
Yeah.
Then they haven't gotten caught like Toledo Central Catholic, so they've really taken it to another level. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Because that's who you really would be playing if Central Catholic come tomorrow night, probably if they hadn't gotten caught with like 14 violations that we know of. But so going into that game, was it just like fearless basketball, play free, play loose, just don't let anything bother you.
Yeah, and we had an opportunity as a staff to watch them on film, and going in, we knew we were seeing probably the quickest team we had seen all year, maybe going back to the summer when we played Toledo Start and Central Catholic in the shootouts. But, we had to go into practice and sell it to the kids that, you can compete with anybody that we have left and we're going to face, and we got to do it at the defensive end. We obviously got to take care of the basketball, which we had 9 turnovers against pretty athletic and pretty quick team last night, and that says a lot about our kids and in the way they handled themselves. They didn't panic. They didn't, they went out there with very little fear. They wanted a piece of that.
The start was big for you too, because you get that cushion because you knew that run was coming.
Absolutely, and we went in the locker room at halftime, and I think all of us wanted to just turn around and say, let's go back out and throw it in bounds and play again, because we didn't want to sit down and think about it. But we knew they were going to make a run at us, and obviously the third quarter we got a little fatigued, and you could see how good they are at getting to the rim and getting to the basket, free throw line, and we were gassed ourselves. We had worn them out the first half, and we got fatigued there in the second, and we missed some checkouts. Obviously, they got to the foul line and took the lead with under a minute to go, and our kids came over. We called timeout, and we just reassured them that you're fine. We're going to hopefully run something here. We'll get something. And Mara Smith, bless her heart, littlest kid on the floor, hit a floater on the baseline, which we work on pretty much every week, trying to tell those guards that, you're going to have to go in there and find a way to get a shot off, and she was able to do that and get us go down.
Take us through that sequence then, because they get multiple looks to potentially win the game. That had to be, I don't know, just death sitting there staring and watching that, just dance and fall. I'm
already on blood pressure medicine. You don't need to get it back up here. You give up a straight line drive for a layup, and fortunately they missed it. The basketball gods
staring
somehow,
down.
and it rolled off, and then it became they got their hands on a second opportunity. It was short, and then it was a volleyball match until finally I think the horn went off. It was so loud in there you couldn't hear, and all I saw was Reese and Kaylee sprinting towards our bench, and it was a pretty special moment.
So you get to enjoy it last night, right, on the bus ride home for a little bit, right?
No, I had to ride home with a couple assistants and a couple other clowns, but we stayed and scouted.
Okay. Well, that's a different level of enjoyment then with the guys that and girls that you kept company with. So you get right back at it today. What's practice like today? What you doing tomorrow? And then give us a scouting report on your opponent, which will be Norwalk.
Well, today was pretty light. Obviously, we had some kids that were pretty beat up and tired and mentally worn out. You win a game like that, there's obviously a lot of emotion, and we had that 2.5 hour, 3 hour bus ride home. But credit to our boosters who put us in a pretty nice bus, so the kids were comfortable, and we just shot a lot today. Tomorrow we're going to obviously a little more game plan, talk about the personnel we're going to face, and our kids did a great job taking away the strengths of what the St. Vincent kids were going to bring to the table, and we're going to have to do that again with Norwalk. They're
what do they do well? What's their game?
They want to obviously pressure you. They're going to box press us. They're going to half court trap us. They played some 3-2 zone last night, which I don't know if they'll do that against us. I think that was more to eliminate dribble penetration. But our staff, looking at them on film, they kind of remind us of St. Mary's personnel-wise. They're not quite as big as St. Mary's or as physical as St. Mary's was. So I think we might have a little bit of an advantage there. They have a couple really nice players that can shoot the basketball. I think if we can defend the lane, we got an opportunity to be successful.
So one of the last questions I have for you is I want to ask you about, when I say community support, you can start with Bryan and work outward, because I've always said that whatever team in whatever sport with whatever gender, when they go on a run, it becomes Northwest Ohio's team. It really does. And I know you probably have some examples. I gave you one off air that I'll share. We were at a surprise. By the way, Coach G coached guys that turned 50 over the weekend. That's where I was at a guy's 50th birthday party. You coached and taught 10 of us. And we were all surrounded by Bruce Wheeler. I mean, it's basically a flip phone. This guy lives in like 1998, but he had this phone, and we were watching this game at this 50th birthday party. And you were the draw for us because we played, and you taught us as well. So that's just a small example. Community support, and then hearing from other coaches and schools and teams. I got to believe seriously, it's overwhelming.
It is, because I got my phone out last night, and I think I had 74 text messages, and it was from players I coached at Montpelier, players I coached at Bryan the first time around, and it's really
from all over the world.
Yeah. Mark Robinson, who took a chance on a college kid that had very little to no experience, and threw me with a group of freshmen that
that'd be me.
I wasn't sure about at that time.
But for just anybody that remembers, you look like you were a freshman on our freshman team when you came to Montpelier.
I remember Rose Belton sending me to the office because I was late to class. She thought I was a student.
Yeah, and that you sold it really, really well. But again, I saw a picture too of you guys returning that favor. On the day that you're playing the district final, there's a picture that somebody posted of the girls team watching Liberty Center play. That's really cool. I mean, compete in the season, but now it's time to root for the league in Northwest Ohio, and you guys did the same.
Oh, absolutely. And Tim Davis over at Liberty Center, I really like Tim. He does a great job with his kids, and we've got to know each other over the years, and obviously they've had a great season. Patrick Henry, another team in our league, had a great season. But we got some pretty good coaches in our league, and we thought it'd be a great idea to get our team together, a little team bonding, and Coach Meyer, being from Liberty Center, obviously had an interest in it too, and so we got to watch that together, and somebody snapped a picture, and somehow it made it over to Tim, and that was pretty cool.
So last one in Bryan on Friday to leave the lights on, right? It sounds like you're going to get a great support. It was, 95% Bryan, I think, last night against St. V's. Norwalk probably travels a little bit better than St. V's, St. Mary's, but...
Yeah, Norwalk had a lot of people there last night.
Full house tomorrow night for Friday.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully it will be. And, credit to our administration who got 3 Spirit buses together. And
they filled them?
Yeah, oh yeah. And to watch those kids file into the gym last night, and Akron's coach came over. I watched her as she walked in with her players, and they all just kind of looked over and went, "Holy cow." And she came over after we introduced one another, and she said, "You guys always get this kind of following?" And I said, "As of late, yeah, we've got, success, and obviously everybody's jumped on board, and our student body is awesome. They've done so many great things with our student body in terms of getting kids to the games and letting them in for free, and so it's been pretty special."
32 minutes from Dayton. How's that sound?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. It is. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, greater group of kids. I know it was fun watching you guys, and you've had a lot of good kids, Bryan, wherever you've coached, you've had a lot of good kids. But I want to ask this is the last question, and it's about how this group has come together, because you talked about that at the beginning and how big that is, because any group can be talented, and you've had a lot of them, but for a tournament run, you better gel and you better come together and all go for one goal, and this group has.
Absolutely, and it goes back to our seniors. Reese Grodhouse, who's been through so much, two ACL injuries, and that entire time she was a leader. Ella Miller, unfortunately, tore her ACL in soccer, and she's been to about every practice and every game, being a leader. We've got Blaze, who played JV as a sophomore. I know she wanted to play varsity, but we had to have her ready when her time came, and she jumped at the role, and she's filled her role better than anybody that I think we've ever had as a sixth man. Allie Allspaw, who is battled, she's been injured and banged up. She's probably spent more time in the training room than she has on the floor, but she shows up and gives us what she can, and it starts with leadership, and then you've got to have a lot of unselfish kids that don't care who gets the credit, and they just show up every day and they want to compete. And we got a lot of competitors in that locker room.
Great
and on
team
that
to
floor.
coach.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, appreciate
Good
it.
luck against Norwalk. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Bryan girls basketball coach Todd Grosjean, Bryan and Norwalk. You can hear that game on our sister station Q96.5 coming up on Friday night at 7. One more Bryan guest. I wish we could have him here, but he's at spring training. Deylen Miley with the Astros organization. I talked to him on Monday. We'll hear from him to wrap up the show coming up next.
The Bryan Parks and Recreation Department would like to wish the Bryan Golden Bears good luck in tonight's game. The Bryan Parks and Rec offers a wide variety of classes for you during the entire year and an array of sporting events all year long. Check out what the Bryan Parks and Recreations Department has going on at bryanparksandrec.com or like them on Facebook. The Bryan Parks and Rec hopes to see you in one of the many parks that Bryan has to offer and enjoy the facilities. Questions about the classes or rental of one of their facilities, call 633-6030.
Well, we continue on Sports Weekly, powered by Terry Henricks Ford. And, of course, our thanks to all of our great sponsors. And in JJ Wins, where we host the event, we were able to get our next guest there last year, here last year, because of timing. But this year just didn't work out. So we're glad to be joined via the phone lines, a little remote guest tonight. And that is Bryan grad and now member of the Houston Astros organization, Deylen Miley. Deylen, thanks for taking the time to be on air with us here and kind of talk about where you're at in your progress and living the dream of a professional baseball player. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Let's talk, first of all, a little bit about 2022's season. Overall, how would, I guess from your perspective, how would you describe last year for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a step in the right direction. It's a long process and a lot of things to learn along the way, and I definitely had more than my fair share of learning throughout last season. But overall, very pleased with what I did learn and what I did accomplish and how I finished up, and just hoping to carry that on through the winter and then now on to spring training.
What were the biggest things that you did learn? And I guess there would maybe a multi-part question here, because there were things obviously you learned on the field and away from the field being in professional baseball, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the big thing is always time management. And with that, I think college definitely prepared me well for that. Just in terms of staying on schedule, getting your sleep, getting your meals, but then showing up to the ballpark ready to go every day. That was a little bit of a learning curve because it's a little longer days than I even think I expected at times. At first it might not seem that way, but you get 100-plus games into the season and it's a little different story. But enjoyed every single aspect of that journey and just the grind. You always hear how much of a grind it really is, but you don't really know what that grind is until you've actually done it. So pretty cool to say I've accomplished that and continue on and get to do it again.
And more of a grind almost mentally than physically. I mean, I know there are physical elements, obviously, to that, but just the mental aspect of baseball can be so draining.
Yeah.
It can get you, can it?
Yeah, most definitely. And probably the biggest part with that mentally is maybe every other week traveling, spending a different week every other week in a different city. And it's always a breath of fresh air to be back home, wherever your home stadium is. But, I mean, just to know the next week you're on the road and you got to pack everything up and, just stay on top of that stuff, make sure you got everything you need for the next week. And it's just adapting and living on the road was a special part of that journey as well.
You hear so much about minor league baseball, Deylen, some of it factual, obviously some fiction as well. What is your biggest takeaway from being a minor league baseball player?
Biggest takeaway. I mean, for me, I think it's simply accomplishing something that's so hard to do, just through and through, and having the opportunity to continue to accomplish even more and be part of an even smaller percentile. That definitely is a great motivation, and to know you're a part of a small group of people that have done it is pretty special.
I want to ask you about your off season before we get into the 2023 portion of the schedule. What's been the off season like for you? I personally, I know what it's been like because and we'll let you talk a little bit about that, because your personal and professional life have really changed a lot from last baseball season. But
yeah.
So what's that aspect like now as a married man? Congratulations on that. But also some things that you've been integrating and working on in your professional career as well, from the pitching aspect of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got home in September, started wedding planning heavy for New Year's Eve wedding, got to marry my wife, been dating since sophomore year of high school, so she's been there through thick and thin. So it was a really special time for not only me but my family as well. But throughout that process, wedding planning up to the wedding, getting after it in the weight room, a big focus was to drop some weight this year, drop about 10 pounds, get a little bit more athletic, not focus as much on the power side, but more on the movement and range of motion side of things. And a big part of that reasoning was due to the fairly large change that they had me make about a little before halfway through the season. We started looking at some metrics and analytics, and they wanted me to kind of change my, so to speak, my posture, so like my spine angle, to be exact, and in doing that, it kind of lowered my arm slot and my release height. So a big part of being able to do that was getting more mobile and moving a little better into deeper positions. So that was a big focus throughout the entire offseason, was just honing in on that change. I mean, it was a tough several weeks, about a month and a half, that was just, like we alluded to earlier, not only physically, but a mental grind. They didn't care about outcomes. They just cared about making the change and seeing progress with that. And eventually it came, and the last month and a half finished up really strong, started to see the process really come together, and what could eventually be the final product. So just honing in on all that stuff this off season and polishing up those movements as best I can. I mean, I've been throwing one way for my entire life, so you can imagine trying to change something after 20 years is pretty tough.
Yeah, and no question, especially when you're changing something. I mean, it's tough enough to make changes in our daily lives if it's just a lifestyle choice. This is your body and how you deliver a baseball and how your body is athletically. I mean, that is a whole new, I guess, kind of change that not very many of us can imagine, I guess. So,
yeah, no, most definitely. But like I said, I mean, for the most part, it's behind me. It's just honing in and kind of just refining it and continuing to make those small details. Got a good foundation built, so it's just working off that foundation.
Talking with Deylen Miley, and you mentioned the analytics. You're with one of the most analytically driven organizations, too, in Major League Baseball in Houston. So that's something that I'm sure as soon as you got there, you had all of those tools available to you. That's an organizational thing. This isn't just Major League Baseball. That's an organizational thing, right?
Yes, it's a complete organizational thing. I mean, for the most part, teams are definitely integrating analytics more into their organizations, but the Astros have always been at the forefront of doing that, and credit to them. That's part of the reason they've been so good at developing players and then built the franchise they have in the past 6, 7, 8 years.
So, and you're also part of an organization that just won the World Series. Does that trickle down even to you at the minor league level? I guess how was that when the organization won the World Championship last fall?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, we don't see any monetary increases or anything along those lines. But in terms of just being around the clubhouse and stuff, I know talking to guys the last year they won in 2017, talking to guys that have been around then in 2018 spring training, they just said like the camaraderie and the determination in the clubhouse and around the facility and stuff, that spring training was just different than they'd ever seen, and for a good reason. I mean, guys are still not content, and so being around that level of an organization and being a part of that, you really see like how much grind and how much care you have to make it to the top and maintain being at the top.
So here's a question that just came into my mind right now. And obviously, we want to make sure everybody knows you weren't a member of the organization. You know, I want to ask a question about this. You know, from your perspective of the scandal of Major League Baseball, the sign stealing from 2017. I want to ask from a minor league perspective. We know the abuse that the players can get, and it's been vocal. It has been. Yeah. I'm trying to think of another adjective. It has been extremely vocal at the major league level. Do you hear it from other fan bases, even at the minor league level, as a member of that Astros organization, Deylen?
To put simply, if you want to hear it, you can hear it.
Gotcha.
I mean, yeah, it's nothing like I'm sure those guys at the top experience, nowhere close. But yeah, I mean, how can't you?
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is, and you know, for as much as an organization we put it behind us and look at what was done this past year, it's still going to be in history forever. And you know, that's just what it is.
Yep.
So,
and that's not your issue. I just wanted to
deal with it.
Yep, and that's why. And I wasn't going to go too much into that because, like I said, you had nothing obviously to do with it. You weren't even in the organization or anything like that at all when it happened. But I was just curious if how far that opposing hatred seeped down through just going to a minor league baseball game that the Astros affiliates were a part of. I was just curious as to. No,
you can definitely find it if you want to.
Okay. So as we speak, you're getting ready. You just literally had a physical today, so that means your spring training's about ready to get going. Tell me a little bit about what this is like from your perspective as you start and then slowly start to ramp up here in spring training.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. You know, last year, my first spring training, didn't really know exactly what to expect. So coming back this year, knowing what to expect and knowing just a little bit more how to go about my business and what I need to do professionally is key. I think this year, you know, we'll get going here and have a couple weeks of bullpens and facing live hitters, just like pitcher versus batter with the catcher. First couple weeks, and then after that we'll start branching out and playing inter squads with just Astros, and then eventually into playing outside orgs. So it'll be a fun next month.
How have so everybody's talking about MLB spring training? You know, the pitch clock and the shift being completely modified. Some of this stuff began in minor league baseball. Some of this stuff you're sort of used to dealing with. Is there anything that is going to affect you this year in 2023 with MLB rule changes?
To my understanding, no. Like you just said, all the changes really at the major league level were already implemented in the minor league level. So for the most part, guys in the minor leagues have a pretty good grasp after playing a whole season of that under their belt. So, you know, if us as minor leaguers can adapt to it, I feel major leaguers can do the same, and they will. I mean, they'll really have no other option. So it'll be interesting. You know, there's still going to be issues here and there and controversies, but I mean that happens regardless of any of the rules. So
we all have goals. We all have, whether they be short-term, long-term, a little of everything. What are Deylen, Miley's goals here in the short term right now as you go to spring training? I mean, we know what the long-term goal is, and that's to get to the big club. What's the short-term goals right now?
Short-term goals, I mean, really this next month, the key is just to stay healthy and get out of spring training healthy. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, just to continue to refine the things that I'm working on to put me in the best position so when it does come to the season to perform at my highest level. And obviously to perform at my highest level, I got to stay healthy. So as we ramp up here and stuff, that's definitely the biggest short-term key.
And as we speak, your spring training, for everybody listening, your spring training is where?
And it's in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Okay.
So we share a facility with Washington Nationals. Separate clubhouses, separate sides, but ballpark of the Palm Beaches is the main stadium.
Okay. Family from Bryan area, they going to be able to get down to you here in spring training? Is that a possibility?
I know my family would all love to. I mean, they're all doing their awesome, great things, school, teaching, high school sports. My parents are going on a trip soon. My dad really wants to make a trip down. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to or not. He says he is. We'll see. I hope he does. The wife will be coming down at the end of the month on her, she's a teacher back outside of Louisville, so she'll be coming down her spring break, which is the first week of April.
Yeah.
So right as we get sent out.
Well, we wish you nothing but success, Deylen, in this major league career chase, professional baseball chase. We know you're going to work hard at it. That's absolutely, we can hear that in your voice, and the want to and the motivation is fully there and fully engaged. I guess any final thoughts for our listeners here as you get ready to start season 2 of playing professional baseball?
Yeah, no, once again, I just want to thank you, Andy, for keeping up with me and giving me the opportunity to talk. And, to Northwest Ohio and that community there, I hear you all. I feel all of the support. So I really appreciate all that.
I was going to say, I'm sure you feel and have heard from a lot of people from last year, and some people even maybe were able to make a trip and see you pitch. So we hope that that's the case as well. We'll be following and monitoring your movement through. Stay healthy. As you said, that's the biggest short-term goal. Stay healthy, and good luck with all the mechanical changes and analytical changes that you've made. And love to see it pay off as you continue to climb that ladder.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andy.
Deylen Miley joining us on Sports Weekly here as our guest, driven by Terry Hendricks Ford here on B-Rock 100.9.